Super. Are we ready to go?
We are. So good morning, everyone. I say good morning because I'm in Boulder, Colorado. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Brooke Berlin. I'm the North American representative for Tswalu. I have been working with Tswalu Kalahari for 5 years this September, which makes me absolutely thrilled to pieces. Though my first time at Tswalu, I think, was about 7 or 8 years ago. And Russell and all of you who know me knows that I have just a seriously deep love and respect and passion for Tswalu. It was really fun for me to get ready for this presentation this morning. I put on my Patrick Mavros pangolin bracelet because of all the pangolin research work that we're doing at Tswalu. I've got my Nat Geo on. We're one of the founding members of the Nat Geo Unique Lodges. And I actually also, as I was speaking about wine there with Russell, I've got my bottle of Jan wine ready to go this afternoon. I've got my Kalahari Earth from my very first experience at Tswalu. And then we were talking about our artist in residence, and I have my Nick Bladen piece from probably my second time at Tswalu. So my house is 100% Tswalu all the way. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Russel Binks, joining us from South Africa, to give you so many more details about Tswalu and elaborate on all of those things that I absolutely love about the property. So Russell, thank you very much for joining us today. Take it away.
Super, thanks, Brooke. Oh, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. What I'm going to just do is just go through a few highlights of Tswalu. We're going to talk about, I suppose, the status quo during lockdown, where we are from a status point of view with the lobbying with government about reopening the inbound tourism sector, and then a few projects on the cards for Tswalu Kalahari. So I think firstly, just as an introduction, location-wise, very important. You know, we quite nicely situated just south of the Botswana border. We're in an area referred to as the Green Kalahari. A lot more rainfall than what you typically find in the Central Kalahari. So your diversity, your habitat, completely different, a very unique habitat. And quite easily accessible from Johannesburg and Cape Town. We have a daily flight from Johannesburg, hour and a half into the reserve. Cape Town is 2 hours. And the great thing about the timing is that if you are connecting and you're doing a dual bush safari destination, for instance, malaria-free into Madikwe, or you're going into the Kruger or Sabi Sand, that our flights arrive early enough in OR Tambo, Johannesburg from Tswalu to connect without having to overnight. And then vice versa, coming to Tswalu as the last safari destination, we leave late enough to connect on the flights that come into OR Tambo. Fireblade Aviation is our fixed-based operation that we use out of Johannesburg. All private charter services, lounge facilities. I mean, it's incredible. It's a wonderful experience for guests. I think adds to that introduction and that departure from Tswalu. You have an a la carte restaurant, it's day rooms. We have these VIP lounges, spa facility. So certainly take some time at the Fireblade FBO before going on to the main terminal. And then just as a side, we do all the shuttle services between the main terminal, including Cape Town, and we do all the meet and greets coming off international flights. So the actual ground logistics are quite seamless. And that's our vision, is to leave the world better than how we found it. Our logo, which is the petroglyph, certainly resonates to the Khoisan of many years ago, just in terms of the low impact, appreciating the planet that we live in, and certainly wanting to give back. That's been our prime ambition from day one. Tswalu has always been very much a conservation project, is to restore the natural environment, to reestablish the biological diversity. And by that we mean the number of indigenous species into the Southern Kalahari, and then to maintain the natural ecological process of that Kalahari environment. This is always a wonderful slide that we use as an introduction. It's just the welcome letter that each of your guests or yourselves when you visit Tswalu will receive from Nikki Oppenheimer. Just emphasizing, I think, the importance of allowing Mother Nature time and space to do her thing. And this was essentially that Southern Kalahari about 50 years ago. And if you look at transition in the reserve, where it started off as this 30,000 acre conservation ambition to now the largest private game reserve in South Africa. We're just under 300,000 acres. And just to give you an idea of the topography and the vegetation, how this restoration kind of ambition has exceeded, I think, any expectation, and certainly something that we will continue to do. It's an absolutely beautiful landscape. I mean, those savannah dunes, you have this beautiful mountain range running down from north to south, the spine of the reserve, endless vistas. And I think what's also very important for us is I think that concept of that really low impact, high value experience. You know, we accommodate pretty much a maximum of 28 adults on the entire reserve, adult guests. And with Tswalu, your private vehicle garden tracker is a given with every booking. So you really decide your own safari experience at your own pace. There's nothing premeditated. There's no scheduled itinerary. When guests arrive at Tswalu, they would sit down with their guide and then go through their program for however many nights they are at Tswalu. Typically for us, given the size and the activities and the experience, we would recommend a 4-night stay. I think to give you an idea, if you look at the number of adults and the size of the reserve, you know, you essentially got almost 30,000 acres per guest. So you certainly have your own exclusive Southern Kalahari experience and doing it at your pace. What one can find in that part of the world, well, certainly, you know, we provide this incredible protected habitat to a number of indigenous species. Certainly, I think on anybody's bucket list is the Kalahari black-maned lion. You can see that dad, I think, has just had a little bit of frustration with the cubs giving him a hard time, but just the emphasis there on the size of the paws to compensate for that soft Kalahari sand. Amazing lion sightings. I mean, those savannah grasslands are just epic for cheetah sightings. Because it's very much shrubland, you'll find a number of the predators tend to look for high ground, looking for predators. And there we have an unusual picture of a cheetah, literally almost on top of a sociable weaver's nest. Leopard sightings. We are home to 1/3 of South Africa's black rhino population, an abundance of white rhino. Certainly the size of the reserve lends itself to the most amazing wild dog sightings. And I think there in its own, you have this incredible safari experience because you're not governed by time. You know, what a wild dog experience would typically encounter is you're out and about early morning and the afternoon, and you're actually following the dogs, the pack hunt. And as we know, they can go through 2 or 3 attempts before they actually succeed, because they'll try to take on any size antelope and realize their limitations. And you can spend 4 or 5 hours tracking wild dogs before they succeed. Everybody loves a picture of a pup. So those are some youngsters. We've actually got one of our females in denning at the moment. So we should be having some pups quite soon, welcoming them to the Tswalu family. And then I think what makes Tswalu so unique, and I think why it is a destination on its own, are those unusual species that you typically wouldn't find anywhere else. Here we've got a picture of an aardvark. These are typically your nocturnal species. This particular picture you can see with the daylight was taken in our winter, your summer. So I think as far as the your peak US safari travel period. Most of our nocturnals are out and about during the day because our winters are really cold at night. So you tend to find a lot of the nocturnals that are hunting and foraging during the day. So your opportunity to see these unusual species are quite common during the day. And then we've got the African ground pangolin. Again, I think on everybody's bucket list, come and look at these unusual species. And a number of other species typically indicative of that southern Kalahari. You know, you've got the brown hyena, so including the spotted hyena. You've got the aardwolf, bat-eared fox, and the number of antelope species. And for the twitchers, we've got over 240 bird species in that southern Kalahari area. And what certainly goes hand in hand with your safari plan is that it's not typically 2 drives a day. You know, we don't have set game drive times. Your game drive times are primarily determined by temperature. So our winter months, your summer, you would typically go out on drive earliest 7 o'clock in the morning. Nobody wants to be out before then because it's absolutely freezing. And you can spend the entire day out in the bush, packed picnics, lunch out in the bush, and literally come back at sunset. Summer, your whole safari plan changes because of the temperatures during the day. So you tend to do a lot more of those morning safaris, late afternoon going to early evening. And then, I mean, the most amazing night drives. You know, having dinner, going out at 10 o'clock at night and coming back at 5 in the morning is just something quite spectacular. But over and above that vehicle experience is we encourage a lot of walking safaris. You know, you get to kind of really see animals up close and personal. You get to understand the flora, you know, the plants that the Bushmen used to use for medicinal purposes or edible purposes. So it's a wonderful educational experience. Again, very much part of your safari encounter at Tswalu is spending time with our habituated meerkats. We've got 2 colonies at the reserve, and I think just the most amazing time. You see these creatures coming out in the morning, and they're clearing up their burrows for later on the day once they've done with their foraging. You'll see they've all got these dark kind of underbellies. They tend to face east. Those are the little solar panels. They warm them up, and then they're literally out and about all day looking for their daily meals. And if it's something that you'd like to see, we've actually got our live safaris on at the moment. It's every morning, well, it's Central African time is 6:30 in the morning. So it might be a little kind of an evening for you, but in the afternoons, we do these general game drives. But it's spending time with the meerkat families. It's really understanding the flora and fauna of the southern Kalahari. That was just to give you an idea of how inquisitive these little characters are. Some little chap quite interested and intrigued by a GoPro he has to put near the burrow, and he eventually knocks it over and carries on with his daily routine. Another experience is certainly, irrespective of level of experience, are the horse riding activity. Just a wonderful way to experience the bush. You know, you take a gentle stroll through the bush because you have these huge aardvark burrows, so anything faster would be dangerous. For the more advanced riders, if they'd like to canter or go faster, you tend to stick to the jeep tracks. But you see things in the bush that you wouldn't typically see from a vehicle. The horses are extremely well schooled. Children of all ages, we can take children out on lead rein, and you head out in a direction for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you get to a point where your guide or tracker have set out your morning snacks or your afternoon cocktails, and just a highly, highly recommended. It's just a wonderful, wonderful way to kind of get a sense of the bush and just that complete sense of freedom. Another opportunity at Tswalu is you pack a picnic and you head east into the Kronenberg Mountains, and one of the few places in South Africa that actually have the Bushman etchings, the petroglyphs dating back to Middle Stone Age. So you have this wonderful experience in the mountains. You have your picnic on top of the views are absolutely beautiful. And then your 2.5, 3 hour safari back to the lodge. If you would like that complete sense of isolation with no noise pollution, no light pollution, and you just want that utter tranquility with it's you in the bush, an evening at the Mallory Sleep Out is just something quite spectacular. It's an evening of isolation. You spend your time out in the bush, just you and Mother Nature, and your guide wakes you up in the next morning, tea or coffee, a breakfast basket, and then off you continue on your game drive. Absolutely beautiful. It's about 5 miles southwest of our main reserve, and half of the actual, you'll see in the one image, half of the actual sleep out is under thatch, just to protect against the elements. And those that are a little apprehensive, we have those canvas awnings so one can zip oneself closed if one feels the urge to do so. Alternatively, for the more adventurous, that bed's on wheels and you can wheel the bed outside and sleep under the African stars. Talking about stars, I mean, stargazing, just something quite amazing. Every guest, I mean, summers are just wonderful, an absolute and a special attraction on your way back after a night game drive. For a paid for activity, we charge a rate for the helicopter itself. So it's a maximum of 4 people. And one has the option of doing these conservation flips. You go into more kind of rhino densely populated areas. Or alternatively, it's a 15-minute helicopter flip. You get dropped in the Coronaberg Mountains where there's never been a human footprint. Enjoy a decadent lunch and then make your way back to the airstrip. Because we're malaria free, we do a lot of 3-generation family travel. We have the most amazing junior ranger program. You know, there's that old adage that, you know, dad's quite keen to go on holiday where mom's quite keen. Mom wants to go where the kids are going to be taken care of. So Tswalu tends to tick all those boxes. Mom and dad can have some self-time. The kids spend time at the stables. They spend time at the habituated meerkats. They get involved in plaster casting of tracks, bows and arrows from raisin bush. So a wonderful on-the-ground educational experience for children, and it's children of all ages. In the Motsi Streets, and we'll talk about accommodation shortly, we have a policy of children under 12. 2 children, they stay free when sharing with parents. For downtime, a little bit of indulgence, we've got the spa, certainly a wonderful addition to the overall experience. And then a very important influence in what we do at Tswalu is the Tswalu Foundation, which is our research, because essentially research is the science behind conservation. And every guest that comes to Tswalu is involved in some project in some form. It's not a researcher coming and doing a PowerPoint presentation at high tea. You're meeting them in the field, you're getting to understand why they do what they do, and just a wonderful integration into the safari plan. One particular project that we're busy with is the Kalahari Endangered Ecosystem Project. That's the impact on climate change on multiple species. So it's going out to the field, it's interacting with certain researchers, some that are specializing in snakes, others aardvark. There you can see brown hyena, or the impact on climate change. And again, a wonderful education experience, but understanding the science behind what we do. Again, I mentioned earlier that we have an incredible artist in residence program. We've got a studio based at our research center where we get the most incredible, talented South African artists that come and get their inspiration from the Southern Kalahari region. And again, it's an opportunity for guests on your drive. You go and engage with these artists, and just, I think, certainly in addition to that whole overall Tswalu experience. As far as the community is concerned, I think everybody that comes to Tswalu certainly wants to understand what happens behind the scenes, because we are so remote. Our closest kind of element of entertainment is about 300 miles away. We have an amazing clinic on the reserve that services the broader community stretching out into Botswana. We look after about 5,000 patients a year. We have our own horticultural, our vegetable gardens to minimize our carbon footprint. We have the most amazing local school, and wonderful for guests that are coming with young kids. You know, we always tend to suggest this, and one morning the kitchen packs your children little snack baskets and you go and spend the morning at the school. And what tends to happen is the children, that becomes the norm every morning, that they'll do school in the morning, picked up at lunchtime, and then carry on with their drives in the afternoon. And then we go into, so that whole experience, you'll notice we talk a lot about what I think beyond the camp experience. But obviously there's always a time you've got to come home and rest. So we have the two camps. We've got the Motsi, which is our main camp, and we have Nan Lechai. Now, not many people can pronounce that. It's a Tswana word for dwelling. We normally refer to it as a suite. So you have 9 suites, of which there are 3 family suites, the 2-bedroom units. So a maximum of 18 adults. And then about a 45-minute game drive further south is Tokuni, which is our private homestead. That's 5 suites under one roof. Motsi was renovated in last year. We opened up in June. And the essence of the renovation was to carry that private safari experience into your camp experience. So lots of private spaces, minimalistic, elegantly casual. We call it barefoot luxury. You have these beautiful vistas going out, looking out west over the watering hole. And really you get a sense of being in the Southern Kalahari. It's local stone. It's that beautiful kind of Kalahari red sand, private dining experiences, and a lot of the emphasis geared towards outside, because that's where you spend 90% of your time. Lechai themselves, or the suites, as I said, a maximum of 18 adults, incredibly spacious. You just have this, again, very natural, beautiful, looking out west. On the right-hand side of your image there, you can see we've got a study. That desk we collapse and we put in the 2 single beds if parents are traveling with the 2 children under 12. Every room has an enormous veranda with their own private star bed, their sala. And what's quite fascinating is this is a typical winter shot, where you have those you've got that winter frost that comes through, and literally you kind of all those grasses retract to preserve the roots for summer, and you just have this wonderful, typical arid landscape. Now, if you had to look at the same photograph after our rainy season, we don't get a lot of rain. Every millimeter counts. The landscape transforms dramatically. You tend to have these beautiful lush grasses looking out right off your veranda. So almost a completely different landscape, whether you're coming to Tswalu in summer or you're coming to Tswalu in winter. Spacious bathrooms. Every bathroom has their own outdoor shower. That just gives you an idea of that's the 2nd bedroom in the family suite for the children. And if somebody, typically geared around parents that are traveling with older kids, or if you have more than 2 children, it's ample space for 3 children in a family suite. Both bedrooms en suite. That just gives you a schematic of what the family suite would look up with the 2nd bedroom. And on the right-hand side is your Motsi Lechai. And then, as I say, for the smaller groups or the families that want a lot more privacy, we've actually seen quite a big demand now in our kind of private homestead experience with COVID, where people are wanting their own sense of space. And Tokuni is certainly that experience. You have this beautiful camp surrounded by this amphitheater of mountains, enormous verandas. Again, lots of these little nooks and crannies where you can have the most amazing dining experiences every night in a different location. Beautiful pool. So you can see on the right-hand side, just in terms of decor compared to Motsi, I refer to it as probably as bush chic compared to the Motsi experience. So each of them have their own personalities. The rooms themselves leading onto your private veranda, and again, every room having its own private sala or star bed, where you get that sense of just having your own Kalahari garden. So, I mean, that would be, I mean, there are not too many other places where you can have that sunset like that, just absolutely glorious. And then we talk about the culinary journey. So recently, we've got a relationship with Jan Hendrik van der Westhuizen, who's South Africa's only Michelin star chef. He's got a restaurant in Nice, and he's opening up his second restaurant at Tswalu, called smaller than his restaurant in Nice called Jan, and it'll be called Klein Jan, which is the Afrikaans for Little Jan. So, and we've taken on this beautiful kind of historic building that was built in 1903, and we're in the process of converting into Jan's second restaurant, looking at the first quarter of next year. But he's also the culinary director of this whole Tswalu food journey, and he has appointed Manus Sholly, who's our executive chef. And we do the most incredible experiences, whether it's a game drive snack, breakfast, lunch, variety of dinners, and the emphasis is on local ingredients. We've got some amazing artisan suppliers in the area, that whether it's wines, cheeses, those Kalahari dates, you know, it's the African version of the black and white truffle. We have the Kalahari truffles, camel milk, and you pack your picnic, and that just gives you, I mean, just I think a wonderful sense of that self-time. And I think that just really gives you a summary of the overall experience. So every single element that we put into that whole Tswalu journey is wow. Whether it's the in-camp experience, the culinary journey, the activities, every single aspect of that safari plan when your guests arrive needs to be a new experience, an educational experience, an inspiring experience. And we just look forward to, I think, that normality again when we welcome guests. You know, somebody asked me the other day, what's your best time of year? And I said, well, my best time of year when guests are there, because that's certainly that's what inspires us. And where we are now, we have our hospitality team they're on a well-deserved break. They're with friends and family. We'll be reintroducing them back to the reserve. Right now, the emphasis on the conservation work that has to continue. And obviously the security, the anti-poaching. So those teams are in full force. And we are now working towards an anticipated opening of September, October. There have been a couple of, I think, releases earlier alluding to South Africa opening up in February, but we're of the firm opinion that it'll be a lot sooner than that. So we're kind of gearing up towards September, October, and looking forward to, I think, welcoming everybody back to the Southern Kalahari. And I think right now, I suppose the opportunity for any possible questions that I may have not answered.
No, it's wonderful, Russell. Thank you so much. And we do have some great questions coming in. And then the other thing, so I'm going back and forth, I'm getting texts, my phone is blowing up. I miss Tswalu so much, bring me back, best experience ever. I love it so much. So everyone who has been there or who has clients and guests who've been with us are definitely championing what it is that you've said as well. So a couple of the first questions that have come in. Let's first talk about logistics. I've had a couple of questions specifically asking about flights. Can you please re-explain the private charter versus commercial aspect, and then how to combine Tswalu best with the greater Kruger-Sabi Sand area?
Okay, so yeah, so you've really got two options coming to Tswalu. We have our pretty much our own aircraft. We use the PC-12s that fly into Tswalu directly. So there is no commercial flights coming into Tswalu. We Tswalu charter the aircraft, and then there's a per seat rate that we charge our guests, and daily flights from Cape Town and Johannesburg. So you would fly up Cape Town, it's a 2-hour flight into the reserve, Johannesburg daily, an hour and a half. And depending on the routing, you can either do, whether it's Cape Town, Joburg, Joburg, Cape Town return. There's that routing on a daily basis. So access is really seamless. And the nice thing about the timing into Johannesburg is it connects really well into Kruger, the Sabi Sand. And then also, if you've got the market that are looking to charter, I think far too often there's this perception that charter, the cost is prohibitive. But if I look at the per seat rate of what one is paying from OR Tambo into a Kruger or a Sabi Sand, and what one is paying on the flight from OR Tambo to Tswalu, essentially, if you've got a small group of people and you're chartering a PC-12 flying directly from the Sabi Sand into Tswalu, the difference is marginal. You're not having this stopover, and you can literally have breakfast at one safari destination. You get onto your aircraft, 2 hours later, you're arriving for lunch. So access is seamless. You have the option of going on typically the per seat scheduled flight for Tswalu, or you have the opportunity of chartering.
And to expand on that just slightly, though, there was a specific question about how to then combine Tswalu with the Phinda Reserve. So outside of our daily scheduled flights from Cape Town and Joburg, how would you get guests to and from Tswalu?
Yeah, Phinda, you've got, I think Phinda it's not every day. I think they have a couple of flights a week into Phinda. So you'd have to coordinate your itinerary based on those flights in and out of Phinda. If
you're looking at doing scheduled, otherwise, of course, then Firebird can set up those. Yeah. While we are still talking about...
Otherwise, you fly out of Richards Bay. Otherwise, it's that commercial flight into Richards Bay.
That's right. So while we're still speaking about aviation, how much is the helicopter flight? And kind of give a little bit more detail about that overall experience, please.
Okay, so the helicopter is now, if I look at currency, it's about $800 and accommodates 4 people. So a maximum of 4. You tend to fly with a conservator and the pilot, and then you've got a number of options. If you wanted to fly in from Johannesburg, or if you want to flying out of Uppington, you could charter, use the aircraft. But we typically, the 2 on-site experiences is very much, you have a half-an-hour helicopter flip where you're flying with a conservator, who's giving you a little bit of history around Tswalu, just the diversity of species. You're going into more populated areas with rhino density. Just you understand Tswalu, you've got 6 different habitats going from east to west. So your diversity of species are displaced over the reserve. So you would then fly half an hour going with almost as a security patrol, but learning an enormous amount about the region and the flora and fauna. And then the other option is the leisurely 15-minute helicopter flip. Pack this most incredible picnic. You go 15-minute flip around the reserve. You get dropped on top of the Koronenberg Mountains, where there's enough space for you and your picnic blanket. and you just have, I mean, the most wonderful, the views are just absolutely spectacular. You know, you look out west, and I think it's one of the few places in the world where you can see that the circumference is round. For those that don't have, kind of, you know, on the flat earth believers. So, I mean, it's just a wonderful experience. And have your lunch, you know, in summer, it'll be kind of your sunset cocktails, and then it's a 15-minute flip back to the airstrip, and then a game drive bumble back to camp.
Excellent, thank you. Just to wrap up aviation, somebody asked to follow up about Botswana, and it's pretty much the same thing. You would then either do a scheduled flight and have to overnight, Joburg or Cape Town, or again, charter. Fireblade can absolutely help with charter. You can get to Upington, as Russell was saying, and from Upington take the helicopter to Tswalu. So I think that that's usually...
Upington's, if it's a private charter and you're flying out of Maun, it's your most direct international airport access to Tswalu. You clear customs in Upington, and then it's about a 15-20 minute flight to Tswalu.
Perfect. And I've actually been able to do that helicopter experience. It is amazing. And the helicopter and the planes both have some of Pippa Scottness's illustrations on them. She's an incredible artist, and she translated a lot of those Sant etchings into how it is that we've decorated the planes and the helicopters. So I'm going to use that as a transition to talk more about art. I got a text, someone said, I love the Patrick Mavros bracelet, I need to get one. And will you talk a little bit, Russell, about the boutique, about the Artist in Residence program, the boutique, what we have going on in terms of what kind of art people can get at property?
Okay. Yeah, we don't really have a shop. You know, I mean, you've got everybody that comes to Tswalu. You know, you've got the uniform or some wonderful attire, particularly in winter, because you know one normally thinks of Kalahari and you arrive in June or July, and you've got a light jacket, and you realize that evenings drop to about -8. So to have these wonderful Tswalu beanies and buffs, you know, you tend to look like the Michelin man going out on those morning drives. But the emphasis is more on these curated items. We have artwork from artists that have worked within the Artist in Residence program, which is part of the Tswalu Foundation. So the foundation very much about the research about, you know, I think, as I said earlier, the science behind conservation, and the Artist in Residence program is almost it's a source of funding for pieces that would typically be sold. There'd be a percentage that goes to the foundation that's reinvested into the program, but a lot of that is taking these talented artists and giving them time, and it might be 2 or 3 months that they spend time at their studio in the Southern Kalahari at Tswalu, just getting inspiration from their surroundings. And I mean, we've had some incredible artists. If you're going to have a look at the Tswalu website, you'll see, I mean, the absolute talent. And it's also an opportunity for us to kind of showcase, and I think expose and just be super proud of the artists that we do have in this country. And we've actually got an exhibition. We work with the Everard Reed Gallery in Johannesburg. And we've actually got an online exhibition that is starting on Monday, which will run for a month. And again, the website will kind of show you through to the artwork that Bruce has put together, and that has inspired him, you know, the Southern Kalahari. So again, I think it's just I suppose a wonderful experience outside of your typical safari journey.
I'm going to tie 2 separate questions together. One was specifically, can you ask us, or can you tell us more about seasonality? And then what is the best time to go to Tswalu in your opinion? Speak also then about the game viewing in winter versus summer. Okay.
The best time of year is when I'm there.
Or when I'm there.
No, you know, there's no best time of year. You know, for me, I think it's a personal choice. I like those shoulder seasons. I like when the rain has come. And it's not a lot of rain. You know, I mean, we do, I don't know, if we have 9 inches, it's a lot. But, I just love that it's that green, it's that beautiful, lush Kalahari. Temperatures are cooler, and you just have that flexibility of time. And then your landscape transforms completely into kind of the latter part of winter. It's that harsh southern, that arid savannah environment. You kind of get a sense, and you can feel, what the animals are going through. And, but again, timing, whether it's the middle of summer, your whole safari plan is dictated to by temperature. So in summer, for instance, it's really hot during the day. So your whole safari clock, you're up at, 4:30, you head out at 5, you're back by about 9. If it's cooler days, you can go out longer. Breakfast, you have that kind of breakfast, that afternoon siesta. Because there's no set meal times, you don't have to set your clock for lunch. You can have lunch at 4 o'clock, have a glass or two of wine, and head out at 6. And then there's no set meal times. We cater around wherever the guest demands. So if you come across an amazing sighting and you get back at midnight, we're happy and smiley, and we're ready to serve. So it tends to be late nights, enjoying a cognac around the fire, and then you go and get a couple of hours shut eye before you start early in the morning. So a little bit of sleep at night, a little bit of sleep during the day. Winter is very much a sane safari. So the evenings are really cold. You certainly don't want to be out before sunrise. You're not going to see anything. I think animals, they're pretty wise, and I think, they ain't going to go out either. They come out when they can start thawing. And so you get out just after sunrise, and you can spend the whole day. You pack picnics, we'll do lunches out in the bush, and you can quite easily spend 12 hours out going in a different direction every day. There's so much activity during the day in winter. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the nocturnal activity too. And then evenings, you've got literally probably 15 minutes, half an hour after sunset before it gets incredibly cold. And you get back to camp, and the fires are going, and those liqueurs and those hot chocolate cocktails and the amarilla so it's just it really is, it depends. It depends on when you're available. For me, there's no better time of year to come. And we don't have, so there's no real seasonality. So there's no variation in our rate structure. It really is, and as I said earlier, you can come to Tswalu in March, and you can come again in October. It's like you're going to a different place. So any time of the year, the short answer.
And I've been incredibly fortunate. I've been to Tswalu in May, in November, and December, so can also speak to those different seasons and the experience there. And so another question that just came in, are the rooms heated or with air conditioning? And I'm going to say yes. When I was there first in May, I basically every single night sat in front of the fireplace and probably went through an entire tree's worth of wood, just having restocked with more wood for the fire. And when I've been there in November and December, full air conditioning, and you can easily just go into the room and cool off that way, or take a dip in the pool, or many of the other spots on property that are also cool. So yeah, both heated and with air conditioning. Okay, great. Another question then for you. Are the walking safaris proper walking safaris, or are they more like nature walks?
It depends on, I think it probably depends on fitness levels. It depends on the guest. You can go on a proper walking safari. You can start off like in a winter. You might end up with you might start off with the meerkats, the burrow. They go foraging. You can then go on you can go either a nature walk, or if again, I think it depends on the fitness. You can go for a couple of hours walking on game. You can go, the petroglyphs up in the mountains. If you want to go for some serious walking activity, or you want a leisurely walk, almost being dropped off a couple of miles from camp, it really kind of depends upon what the guests are wanting. But yes, whether it's a nature walk or a proper walking safari.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll echo what you said earlier as well. I mean, the fact that we offer private guiding for every single booking every activity is always tailored to the guest and to the experience that they want, their fitness level. When I was there in November, I did a lot of walks, and I was actually there with my mom. Now, we live in Boulder, we're at altitude, and pretty much anybody in Boulder is going to be in shape, but took my mom out, and we did, like a 3-hour walk and tracked cheetah, which was absolutely spectacular.
Yeah.
So very much, yes, geared to the guest at hand. And let's talk about, we'll answer 2 questions at once while we speak about species. So I'm going to let you speak first about, are there elephants in the area? And then are there guides who are specialists in birding? So birds and elephants.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got birding specialists. We've had guests over the years that specifically come for the birding experience. The nice thing about having your own private vehicle, it's exactly what you can do. You're not kind of competing with anybody else's time. Tswalu itself is declared it's the only vulture safe zone in South Africa, which is kind of, again, providing a protected habitat to the whiteback vulture, sorry. And then that question on elephant, if you go back in time and you look at that original slide of the absolute desecration of that southern Kalahari, our ambition first and foremost was the restoration. And if you look at that transition over a number of years, and what Mother Nature has taken so long to restore, the introduction of elephant would desecrate in a matter of years. So we made the decision not to have elephant because of the diversity and the other species that you would typically see in that southern Kalahari area. And you find those that would like to see elephant and wallowing in pools of water and along rivers because it's a water animals. We always, and I think most safaris, do a dual bush. So we would always recommend, if it's something that you want to see and you want to get your water animal fix, you want to see elephant and hippo, you combine, you do 2 or 3 nights in an area that has that propensity for water, and then it's that southern Kalahari experience. You mentioned earlier about that combination with Botswana. I think that's probably one of the nicest combinations out, where you have that absolute water focus, and then you go to this completely different landscape. The topography is different, so it impacts on the flora and fauna. So incredibly complementary experiences. Often people say, "What should I do? Should I do Tswalu or should I go to the Sabi Sand?" I say, you know what? The best thing you can do is do both, because you'll see the best of what South Africa has to offer in terms of the safari experience. There's not one better than the other. They're just so different. So they are just so complementary.
And that also leads very nicely into the next question, speaking about elephant and the real purpose of Tswalu to restore the Kalahari, to protect land. The question is, as custodians of the land, is Tswalu required to submit any substantial reports on sustainability or facts and figures to the South African government, even if Tswalu is privately owned?
Yeah, so Tswalu is declared a protected area. So we are the kind of management custodians of that area. And yes, we're governed, and I think there's a number of affiliations, be it the wild dog, be it kind of your arid grasses area. You certainly are beholden as any protected area. You're part of a broader community.
Do you have a timeline for when Jan's restaurant is going to be open? And sorry, the second part of that question is, and can we expect a cameo visit from him?
Yeah, the first one, I think we'll know in the next couple of days, because now that we've just moved into this kind of more lenient phase of lockdown in South Africa, that legally contractors are permitted to return to work. So we'll probably have an assessment in due course. The idea originally was to get around October, November, but I think at this stage we're probably going to be looking in the first quarter of next year. And then, yeah, I think, unfortunately, Jan's timing there's kind of no finite timing. I think whenever there's the opportunity to get to Tswalu, I mean, intimately involved, you'll have an incredible brigade that will be working with him. But yeah, we'll see him regularly. I don't think we're at that stage though where we can actually coordinate the timing of Jan to kind of timing of a guest wanting to book, so they will be kind of receive this experience and meet him. That's something we couldn't guarantee at this stage. But I think the old directorship and the journey is literally inspired and tailored by him.
Don't worry, as soon as I know that he's going to be there, I'll let all of you know and we can go and have a meal together.
Yeah, it'll be a last minute scramble for flights, and we're kind of
We'll just charter with Fireblade.
Yeah.
So for the avid photographers out there, speak a little bit about the photographic experience, the new photo studio, and what people that specifically also put photographic tours together can expect.
So the nice thing about, I think, with Tswalu, and we spoke about it earlier, about that we've been practicing that kind of sense of self-isolation for a long time. You have this enormous amount of time to yourselves. Because your safari plans are so different, you never get a sense that, even though Motsi's only got the 9 suites or lacha, that you're part of too many other people in camp, because your times are so different. And I think, one thing about with photography is that you can spend as much time as you like out for as long as you would like a particular sighting to capture that right moment. So photographers typically, in winter, they'd be the first ones out to get that morning glimmer of sunshine. The light is great in the late afternoons. I mean, winters with those huge cobalt skies. I mean, it's a photographer's paradise. So I think very much geared. The vehicles are equipped with the equipment. You've got the stabilizers. The guides are extremely knowledgeable. So for the kind of amateur photographers who are keen to kind of get involved, we have some wonderfully talented guides. And then the opportunity is really to kind of go into the photographic studio, edit some of your select images, because far too often you take you go and take these amazing pics, you leave and you've got 2,500 pictures that you just don't know, where to choose, and it almost sits on a memory stick. Whereas I think the photographic studio encourages you to kind of go through and see, what do you really like? What makes the biggest difference to you? You've got the opportunity to share those on social media platforms. We've got the canvas printers, so you could print 2 or 3 images whilst you're on property, and take them with you and frame them when you get home. And as I said earlier, you've got the team on site that will show you through that process. So there's a lot of guidance in terms of capitalizing on that photographic experience.
Do you know yet? I don't actually know the answer to this. What software for post editing are we using? Do we have that information yet from the photo studio?
I can get that. I'm not sure.
Okay. I've got all of the questions that are being asked, so I'll make sure that we follow up with you.
Okay.
And then actually, it's another very good question, especially when photographers are coming and bringing their own photographic equipment. But we've also had guests who are going on to do scuba diving, or just guests that are going on a longer trip. So the question is, because of weight limitations on the flights from Cape Town or Joburg, how do clients, this was specifically coming off of a cruise, but are doing a longer trip in Southern Africa, manage luggage?
Okay, so we look at, on average, if you're going on a small aircraft, you've got the 44-pound capacity. You've got a couple of guests that'll come with those enormous lenses and backpacks, the equipment, and we manage it. You're the captain of your aircraft will guide in terms of the weight limitation. Most people are quite happy. Fireblade, we do storage facilities. The Signature Hangar in Cape Town, we do storage facilities. And that's pretty much either 99% of the time we are pre-informed. So one can arrange the transport of bags onto a forwarding destination, but it's just the capacity of the small aircraft. So, you know, first and foremost is your equipment for the photographers, and then you take enough laundry with you to kind of survive your time at Tswalu. You know, the valet, the laundry is included, so we're happy to valet clothing items every day. But it's never really been an issue when it comes to equipment. I think the biggest concern is, I think, really about kind of adhering to your baggage restrictions and the type of bag. You know, because of your hold in a PC-12 has to be a soft-sided bag, you know, not one of those Samsonites on wheels, that type of thing. So it's really about managing at the point of departure. And then we have bags available for guests that, you know, might forget or do come off a cruise ship that have their 120-pound suitcase that we need to kind of unpack and prepare for Tswalu or for safari. So it's well managed.
Yeah, I've definitely had Tswalu help me ship my excess luggage from Cape Town to Joburg so that I can carry on and meet up with it in Joburg. And then the other thing is any of the flights that are going basically in and out of Joburg, Fireblade will store luggage. I've left hard-sided big luggage at Fireblade, knowing that I'm going to and from Tswalu, and then I can carry on. So that's absolutely something that we manage and can help.
Yeah, and also, you know, if there's somebody that's really adamant about taking the suitcase, you know, because you're limited for space, you've got 7 passengers, you literally book an extra seat.
Thank you. You answered the next question.
Putting your seatbelt around your suitcase and taking it with you.
So that exactly answers the next question. Yes, you can buy additional seats in the plane for more luggage that you want to get to Tswalu with you.
Yeah.
Excellent. And as of right now, we don't have more questions. Some might come in, but it is 11 for me, at least in Colorado. So we're on the hour, and that for me is a perfect way of saying we did get a comment of someone who is loving the wild earth. You know, they said Daryl is so cool and amazing. So Tswalu is doing a lot online, a lot of virtual, a lot of live. Wild Earth, and also right now is when the Instagram Live is starting with Bruce, our artist in residence. So we can definitely answer more questions if there are a couple. Otherwise, I would say just hop off and go and join us online.
Yeah, and if there are any questions, I'm sure they'll contact you, Brooke. And thanks everybody thanks for listening. I hope we've managed to educate a little more, I think, on what Tswalu offers. Thanks for the time. I can't wait to see you, whether it's here, there. Just to see people in 3D is so fantastic.
I agree. Thank you all so much for your time. I really appreciate it. You know, I'm always here for you, and I think you can see my love of Tswalu like beaming off of my face. I love chatting with you, Russell. And so yeah, everyone, thank you so much for your time. We'll see you on Instagram.
Thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.